About 50 years ago, an astronaut returning from the moon experienced things that he couldn't find a scientific explanation for. So, with some colleagues, he launched a new science focused on the mind and how it works in the body and across space and time. It's the field of Noetics, where the tools of modern science are used to help us understand how what we think and feel affects us and the world around us. Now, this is Dr. Ruth Miller's Noetic Moments from the studios of KXCR Community Radio in Florence, Oregon.
This is Noetic Moments, where we explore the field of research that discovers what consciousness is, what it does, how it works, and how our lives could be very different if we understood it better. I am Ruth Miller, a longtime student of consciousness, cybernetics, and anthropology, and through this series of programs, I'm introducing some of the people whose work has defined this field of research, and I'm explaining some of their ideas and experiments. I'll also explore some relevant news items, new research, and questions that you send to my email address, ruth@noeticmoments.org. Noetic moments. Well, over the course of these programs, we've focused on the various models developed to explain our mental and emotional experience, and we've explored the experiments that support those models. We learned that, in spite of what most of the medical world calls consciousness, actually most of what goes on in the mind is not in our conscious awareness at all, but goes on in unconscious processes. From the early researchers, we learned that our minds can be thought of as having three major aspects: what we are aware of, our personal awareness, or what's usually called conscious; what we aren't aware of that's keeping our bodies going and also includes our fears and beliefs about potential threats and dangers, the subconscious; and what we aren't aware of that enlivens our beings and guides us in our actions, which we call the individual superconscious. We then learned that we can change our state of consciousness and shift which of those aspects of mind we are aware of, and, in the process, what we're capable of over time. From neuroscientists, we learned that it's possible to say where in the brain various processes are active, but no one has yet been able to pinpoint where memories are stored or how ideas and thoughts are formed. We also saw that many responses in our body happen far faster than nerve impulses or chemicals can travel through the body, and they often show up in the body before we are even aware of it. So it's clear that our consciousness and our decisions and choices aren't all originating in the brain. So many scientists have come to accept that what we call mind is not the product of the electrochemical activity of the brain, but is in fact the activity of a field that surrounds and permeates the whole body, which some researchers and teachers of ancient traditions, like shamans, have suggested look like a glowing egg shape extending from below our knees to a few inches above our heads. The brain, then, is best understood as a receiver-transmitter, receiving messages from the mind and transmitting them to the body, and receiving messages from the senses and transmitting them to both the body and the mind. We also learned that the brain modifies whatever it receives from both the senses and the mind to fit past patterns of experience. That following Begg's principle that neurons that fire together wire together form what's called the default network. This means we see and hear and feel and tend to think what we expect or believe we will. This field we call mind appears to be at least partly electromagnetic, because it's possible to measure electromagnetic activity for several inches and, in some cases, several feet around the body. Some experiments have demonstrated that a person's mind continues to perceive and process for as much as several hours, even when the brain and heart are flatlined and the person has been declared dead. This lack of brain activity may explain why most reports from those who've been through such what are called near-death experiences do not fit the patterns of expectation stored in those neuronal connections of the default network. Mind, then, is a field. It's a pattern of energy that exists regardless of whether the body is functioning. It permeates and develops with the body and brain, as it is told by the senses through the brain what the world out there is like. Now, every field is a unique pattern of vibration that's different from other fields, and some experiments have demonstrated that minds can vibrate along similar patterns. They resonate with each other. Such resonant minds are able to sense when the other is focusing attention on them, or, for example, is about to come home. And they are changed. The mind and the body is changed when another resonant mind changes. Such experiments help explain how the belief of a care provider in a treatment can help a patient who's receiving that treatment experience relief from symptoms. It also helps to explain the placebo effect and what's been called mental or spiritual healing. And we've learned that mind affects energy and matter in a variety of other ways. For example, in the double-slit experiments in quantum physics, where the subatomic building blocks of the universe show up as either energy or matter, depending on whether a mind is present to observe them. And for decades now, individuals have changed the patterns of numbers in what should be random grids on their computer screens, and the collective human mind has been demonstrated to change the readouts from a network of random number generators on the internet through the Global Consciousness Project. Because of the nature of fields and because of things like the Global Consciousness Project, a growing number of scientists are seeing our individual field of mind as part of a larger field, the collective consciousness of Carl Jung, but it could also be considered the global brain of Peter Russell or the noosphere that Teilhard de Chardin described in the 50s. And more scientists are saying that that mind extends beyond the Earth. They're equating that larger field of mind with the quantum or zero-point field out of which all matter and energy arise. Some are calling it the Akashic field, using the Sanskrit term that is defined as, quote, the essence of everything that exists in the material world, end quote. And some physicists are trying to develop the equations that relate how is consciousness participating in the formation of our material world? They're getting some very interesting results, all of which led us to the exploration of some of these more popular ideas, such as the law of attraction, in which the universe reflects back to us that which we are holding in consciousness, or the accessing of information in that quantum or Akashic field through insight, intuition, and the increasingly understood process of channeling. We've also looked at how dreams affect the body and consciousness and the effects of music on brain, body, and our connection with other fields. In these past few weeks, we've been looking at the role of mind and our state of consciousness in the healing process and the ways we can enhance or slow down healing through our thoughts, emotions, and what we visualize. You can catch up on our past shows on our website, www.noeticmoments.org, where you'll also find links to clips, books, and authors that I mention. Today, I'm going to continue with this healing stuff, and we're going to look at a particular neurochemical that is released by the brain when certain things are in place. First, I'm going to let this video describe what goes on when this particular chemical is not available.
Serotonin is a neurochemical made by your body that helps you to feel cheerful, happy, and in a state of well-being. It's involved with keeping your mood stable, helping you to focus, stay calm, and pay attention. Unfortunately, many people have low levels of serotonin, which can cause you to feel irritated, stressed, and you may suffer with anxiety. People with low serotonin levels also often have low self-esteem, perceiving that the world is an unfriendly place, which can even develop into depression. Low serotonin can cause you to crave short-term highs from eating junk foods, binge eating, alcohol, or drug use. It can also disrupt your sleeping patterns, possibly causing you to oversleep or waking up many times during the night. And it's also involved with maintaining normal digestion, so without enough you may develop irritable bowel syndrome or chronic diarrhea. Fortunately, there are some simple and natural ways to boost your serotonin levels to overcome these problems.
So we've been talking about the ways that the brain and the body and the mind are interconnected. Serotonin is one of the chemicals that is released in the brain when the signals from the body to the brain and or from the mind to the brain are transmitted in a way that the body then can transmit this chemical into the cells. Serotonin is one of the wonderful ways in which we can feel comfortable and calm in the universe. If the signal that is getting to the brain is disrupted from any part of the body, or if the signal from the brain to the rest of the body has been disrupted by the normal default network, serotonin may not be properly developed in the brain, and it definitely won't be properly distributed in the body. So what we're going to be looking at today is some of the ways that we can use the mind and, in some cases, use physical things to help us restore that balance. Now, most often, reduced levels of serotonin are associated with fear, anxiety, trauma, and other conditions that are literally blocking the brain from receiving signals of being that are in the mind waiting to be experienced by the brain and body. This blockage is often the default network, the normal thought patterns, going round and round and not allowing for the signal to get to the part of the brain that manufactures and distributes the serotonin. We're going to find different ways to restore the process of manufacturing and distributing serotonin. The first of those is a mental process. It is the process of stilling that default thought structure, which is what we can do when we exercise, when we meditate, when we sing and laugh, when we engage with situations that bring us great pleasure, whatever they are, whether they're hugging our cat or throwing something with the dog or playing with the children or the grandchildren or watching silly movies on TV. It really doesn't matter. Whatever gives us joy and comfort breaks us out of the default structure that has prevented the manufacture and distribution of serotonin. Now, we're going to find that more often than not, those kinds of activities in our culture are not sustained easily. So in those cases, we may want to augment this simple shift from the being stuck in the normal thought structure to introducing a different way of thinking with foods or with the appropriate chemicals that would normally be stimulating these things in the body-mind. One of the most popular of those is something called L-tryptophan. Now, if you've ever felt really good and lazy and comfortable after a big turkey dinner, it's the tryptophan that is the reason for that. It's not that you ate too much. It's that there's plenty of tryptophan in turkey meat, and it tends to encourage us to just lean back and be very happy and comfortable. There are other sources of tryptophan, and it is possible to acquire supplements with L-tryptophan. It's a particular form that the body finds very easy to use to help break from the default thought structure and begin to once again develop and distribute the serotonin that helps us feel calm and comfortable. Another physical way is to restore the chemistry of the gut, literally, by encouraging the presence of the bacteria in the gut that then signal to the brain that serotonin is appropriate. So tryptophan is one way. And to encourage the proper bacteria is another way. Usually this is with what are called probiotic foods, like what's in active cultures in yogurt, and also prebiotic foods, which are less common in our culture. Apparently, if you want to chew on chicory root, that would be a real quick way to get it. But if you're a fan of watermelon and asparagus and are pretty good at eating your berries on a regular basis, you're probably more likely to have the appropriate bacteria in your gut that will help your brain get the message to generate serotonin. When that begins to happen and your serotonin level is appropriate for the body, then you'll find yourself more calm, able to sleep better, and then the sleep will actually induce more of the serotonin, and so on. So you get into this wonderful positive feedback loop that encourages a sense of well-being and then encourages the actual well-being. My favorite way, though, to elevate our levels of serotonin is to recall happy events, to sit in a nice, pleasant place, looking at the fire, looking at the clouds, looking at the trees, looking at the birds, whatever, the river, the ocean, and remember happy times. This shuts down the default network and tells the brain to generate that serotonin and distribute it throughout the body so that we can just relax and not have to deal with all that anxiety, all those other things that result from inappropriate serotonin levels. Now here's our serotonin guy with a nice summary of all the ways that we can replace the serotonin we need.
To boost the happy hormone called serotonin, take 250 milligrams of L-tryptophan before bed. Get more sunshine of at least 45 minutes on a daily basis. Eat probiotic and prebiotic-rich foods. Get 30 minutes of aerobic exercise twice a week. Stop snacking to help tryptophan and fuel cross into your brain. Manage your stress by getting a massage or drinking passion flower tea. Improve your sleep by going to bed at more regular times and turning off your devices. And journal to recall happy moments and joy from your life.
That receiver-transmitter that we call the brain receives what we are focusing on, uses what it receives to generate various kinds of neurotransmitters, leading to our comfort and joy. And then, as we are focused on that which gives us joy and comfort and ease, and make choices that are in alignment with that joy and comfort and ease, then the brain then releases to the body the chemicals that it needs to function at joyful, comfortable ways. Isn't that cool? There's one of the specific ways that the principles that we've been talking about on this show work in the body. Now, if you want to learn more about serotonin, the Serotonin book, How to Maximize Your Serotonin Levels Naturally by Alexander Wright, is one possible way of doing so. Wright has written several books on the various neurotransmitters produced in the brain, including the dopamine book. And he teaches us about each of them, what they are, how to utilize them to make us live far more comfortable lives. So in this book, the chapters include what serotonin is, its function, and more, how to use probiotics to boost serotonin, how to utilize diet to improve serotonin, bad habits that have been robbing you of serotonin, habits that will foster serotonin production, and supplements that will boost serotonin levels. The book came out this spring, and I think that if anxiety, poor sleep, etc. have been an issue, you might really want to check it out. The publisher is Wright himself, Alexander Wright, the Serotonin book, and I think it will find it very useful. Of course, it's available on the usual sites when you go online to find it. If you've just tuned in, you are listening to Noetic Moments, the show that explores what consciousness is, what it does, and how our lives could be better if we understood it more fully. I'm Ruth Miller, and that sound tells me we need to look at what's going on in the world today and what you, the listeners, are curious about. Continuing with this theme of the relationship between what the brain receives and transmits to the body, there's some marvelous new research resulting in part from the whole COVID thing around the nature of our relationships and the nature of our bodily health. Basically, consistently good interactions with other people tend to increase our bodily health. Consistently bad relationships don't seem to have too much of an effect on our bodily health. It's the ups and downs that seem to be the ones that cause the most stress on the body's functioning. So if you're in relationships that sometimes are amazing and sometimes are awful, or you have some folks that you interact with on a regular basis and it's smooth and easy, and others that it's difficult, or any number of inconsistencies in your relationships, it's probably showing up as stressors in the body. Therefore, everything that we've studied today around increasing the serotonin levels would be a very good thing to practice. And as always, what's going on in the body is an indicator of what's going on in our mind, our consciousness. When we are focused on the wonderful things in life, those happy memories or current delights, the body responds. This chemical, serotonin, is an indicator of how the body is responding. Very useful, and it is not the cause. It is the indicator. Consciousness is the cause, and body is the result or the effect. Very helpful distinction to make as we're going forward into this world in which all kinds of things are changing. We have the power simply by choosing what we are focusing on to bring our body into its highest level of functioning. And I love how that is so. I am not dependent on chemicals. I am not dependent on a particular diet. I am simply responding in the body through the brain to what the mind is being and doing and focusing on. Yes. All right. Well, we're out of time for today. That's it for today's show. The next time we get together, we will look at more of the research being done in an attempt to understand what consciousness is, what it really does, and how we can experience life differently when we use it fully. And please remember, you can continue the exploration of all of these studies that we've been looking at for all of these months on www.noeticmoments.org, where there is a list of all the resources we refer to on each show, and where you can send me your comments and questions, which I'll do my best to get answered the next time we're on the air. For now, thanks for joining me here on Noetic Moments, recorded in the studios of KXCR Community Radio in Florence, Oregon. And have a wonderful week.
You've been listening to Dr. Ruth Miller's Noetic Moments. This program is produced in the studios of KXCR Community Radio in beautiful Florence, Oregon, supported by you, our listeners. Our theme music is Tumbling Planets, composed and performed by Jeff Lovejoy. To hear this program again or learn more about Noetic Sciences, search our website, www.noeticmoments.org.
Hello, this is Ruth Miller again, and if you are interested in learning how the body heals and the role of the mind in the process, and how it is that our consciousness and our bodily experience, our material experience, are related, you might want to join me on Saturday, April 22nd at 1 p.m. Well, I'll be doing my Understanding Healing workshop in Waltport, Oregon, at the Little Ocean Unity Church, which is at 385 Northeast Elsie Highway, across from the hardware store on the road between Waltport and Corvallis. I'll look forward to seeing you there. Bye.